Chapter 5. Brenda woke up Sunday morning, stretching in bed. It took her a moment to realize where she was. When she did, she was embarrassed about her behavior the night before. It hadn't felt right to let him touch her, but they were married. She shouldn't have been so skittish. She thought for a moment about going straight to his room and starting something, but she felt the panic wash over her again. No, she'd wait. She glanced at the clock on the nightstand beside the bed, and saw that it was just past 7. Daniel had said he wanted to go this morning to pick up some things from her apartment, and she didn't know how early he meant. She got out of bed and headed for the bathroom, wanting to be ready when he was. 15 minutes later, she was showered and dressed for the day. She went to their connecting door, and knocked softly, thinking that if he was still asleep, she wouldn't wake him. At his call of, "Come in," she opened the door and stepped into the room. He was still in bed, the covers pushed down to his waist. His chest was bare, as it had been the night before. It had no hair at all on it, which surprised her a bit. Her father had looked like a bear with his shirt off. Daniel looked at his new bride, already dressed for the day. He reached out a hand for her, inviting her to join him on the bed. "You're up early." He'd gotten on his laptop and done more work after he'd left her the night before, doing what he could to get ahead, so he could devote more time to her once he was finished working. Brenda sat down on the edge of the bed, as far from him as she could. "I'm used to getting up early." Daniel blinked, sitting up in bed and rubbing his eyes. "You're not a morning person, are you?" The words were accusatory, because really, no one should be a morning person. It was an evil thing to be in Daniel's eyes. Brenda shrugged. "Really, I can be either one. It depends on what I have going on." That was even worse than being a morning person. "Well, then it's time to be a night owl." "I hate mornings." He looked at her, gauging the distance between them. "Why are you way over there?" He patted the spot directly next to him. "Come say good morning." Brenda moved over beside him with her back to the headboard. "Is this better?" He slipped his arm around her shoulders. "Better for me." "How'd you sleep?" His sleep-warmed body felt hot against her skin, and she liked it, a little too much. "Like a log." "I slept very little this week, what with getting ready to move and being nervous about marrying a stranger." "Am I still as scary as I was before you met me?" Brenda considered his question for a moment, before shaking her head. "Mostly, no." He raised an eyebrow. "Only mostly?" "Well, before I met you, you were just an average Joe in my mind. Now that I've met you, I know you're this mega rich guy, and that's intimidating." He laughed. "Trust me. A rich man is the same as a poor man deep down. I've been both. I should know. It's hard to imagine you struggling financially." "Oh, I have. My first 3 years of college were a struggle. It wouldn't go back to being poor for anything though. I don't imagine it suits you." She relaxed a little, leaning against him. "What time do you want to go get more of my things? How much are we after today?" He really didn't have time to spend all day shuttling things back and forth. "All I packed was an overnight bag. I'd like to make sure I have enough clothes for the week. Maybe pick up a couple of books." She shrugged. "I'll need to set up some movers sometime this week." She tried to picture the man beside her renting a U-Haul and moving things himself. It just didn't work in her brain. "I'll have my secretary arrange that tomorrow. Don't waste your time." "What time do you get off work?" He reached for his phone on his nightstand and made a little note for himself, dislodging her in the process. "I get off at 5. I could be to the apartment in Plymouth by 6:30 at the latest." "How much stuff do you have to move?" She shook her head. "Not much. I think I'll probably donate most of my furniture. It's all secondhand anyway. I know I'm not going to need it here." She thought fleetingly about storing her furniture, in case things didn't work out, but she was determined that they would. She believed that marriage was forever. I think that's a really good idea. We could have the movers take the majority of your furniture to a shelter or something. If you have something that has sentimental value, we'll bring it. She nodded. I'll do that. I'll do some research tomorrow and find the best place to donate things like that. She'd always had to sell everything she wanted to get rid of, but she loved the idea of donating to a worthy cause. Sounds good. I'll shower and get dressed. Mrs. Brinkley is off on Sundays, so we're on our own for breakfast. We can stop somewhere on the way to get your furniture. Oh, no need, Brenda said. I'll fix breakfast. What do you like? She loved the idea of cooking for him. She knew some of her feminist friends would probably laugh at her, but she felt like it was her responsibility to feed him, since they were married. I'm not picky. I like almost all breakfast foods. I'll fix breakfast while you shower then. Meet me downstairs when you're ready. She started to scoot off the side of the bed, but he kept his arm tight around her shoulders. I can't cook unless you let me leave. You haven't even kissed me good morning. Is that any way to start your second day of marriage? She blushed, even as she raised her lips for his kiss. I wasn't sure that you'd want to kiss me. Daniel shook his head. I'm not angry with you. I understand. We'll give it a little time. He leaned down and brushed his lips softly across hers. As long as I get to kiss you whenever I want. Brenda nodded. Sounds perfectly reasonable to me. She did move away from him then and went down to the kitchen, hoping Mrs. Brinkley wouldn't have a problem with her rummaging around. She felt like the kitchen belonged to the housekeeper, not her. She found everything she needed for pancakes and bacon. 20 minutes later, when he joined her, she was just putting breakfast on the table. I hope you like pancakes. I'm human, therefore I like pancakes, and I love bacon. He sat down at the table in the kitchen where she put their breakfast. Why are we eating in the kitchen? He didn't care much, but he was surprised she preferred to eat there. He'd never eaten in his own kitchen before, although there was a nice table, and even some stools at the bar he could sit at to eat, if he chose to do so. Brenda shrugged. The dining room just seems so formal to me. Do you have something against formal? Daniel asked, spreading butter on his pancake and adding syrup. It doesn't suit me very well. I'm more of a jeans and t-shirt kind of girl. To eat in your dining room, I feel like I need to be dressed in some kind of a ball gown. Brenda refused to feel like she had to get dressed up for prom every night in her own home. Daniel laughed. I promise, you don't. I've eaten there in jeans and a t-shirt many times, and lightning has never come down from the sky and struck me dead. Brenda took the spot beside him at the table and began fixing her own pancakes. There's a first time for everything. I'll eat in the kitchen. He squeezed her hand in his. You know what? I like you. She grinned. That's a good thing, because we're stuck with each other. She was starting to like him too. When he was paying attention to her, at least. He nodded. We did sign a contract stating that, didn't we? I know I did. She took a bite of her pancakes. Do you want to leave as soon as I finish doing the breakfast dishes? Leave the dishes. Mrs. Brinkley will do them tomorrow. I couldn't do that. I can do them after we get back though, if you'd prefer. She couldn't imagine leaving a sink full of dishes for the housekeeper when she returned. If she was going to be cooking more meals that day, there'd be a real mess by morning. Her mother had raised her better than that. He shrugged. Suit yourself. He wasn't about to argue with her to keep her from doing work. What hours do you usually work during the week? She asked. She was worried he'd say 8 in the morning until midnight, because that seemed to be his style. Depends on what's going on. This week, I'll be working in Dallas, getting a speed dating site set up. She blinked at him. You're leaving town this week? And you haven't told me yet? Do you not realize we're married? He nodded. That's why I wanted to get married last weekend, but it didn't work with your schedule. I'll be out of town tomorrow through Friday. He didn't really want to leave so soon, but he didn't feel like he had a choice in the matter. She couldn't believe he hadn't told her before now. So we've been married 24 hours, and you're leaving tomorrow, and you didn't bother to tell me until now? He frowned. I didn't really think about it. I'm not used to answering to anyone for my whereabouts. Does that upset you? A little. It just seems odd that you're running off as soon as we married. I don't really have a choice. This is what I do. If you didn't have to work this week, I would take you with me. We could call it a honeymoon. A honeymoon with you working all day, every day? I need to stay in my apartment this week. It's going to seem really strange here without you. She couldn't imagine what he was thinking. Why would he think it was okay to leave her when they'd just barely gotten married? I'd rather you didn't. I want to know that you're here when I'm gone. And I want to know that Mrs. Brinkley is taking care of you. I don't need anyone to take care of me. I will feel very awkward rattling around in this huge house without you. She felt awkward enough with him there, and she didn't want to compound it. He frowned at her. Why? This is your home now too. I want to think of you here. And do you expect to always get what you want? Not always, but I definitely prefer to. Will it really hurt you to stay here while I'm gone? Seems to me like you're just being difficult. Where had his pleasant wife gone? This woman was belligerent. She blinked a few times, forcing her anger down. He didn't know her well enough to know how badly he was pushing her buttons. I'm not trying to be difficult. It just doesn't seem like it would be a comfortable situation for me. Why can't he see that I'm a thinking, breathing human being? I don't know why not. I live here. So you belong here while I'm gone. She shook her head. Why didn't we wait until next weekend to get married? Wouldn't that have made more sense? I didn't want to wait. She waited a moment for him to explain his position, but then it became obvious that he was finished. Really? So we're back to you always getting what you want. He frowned. Maybe I'm a little bit spoiled to getting my way, but I've been making a ton of money for a very long time, and I'm used to people doing what I want them to do. Even as he said the words, he knew they weren't logical, but she was his wife, damn it. She should want to do what he wanted her to do. She took a deep breath, standing up to take her plate to the sink. I'm not people. I'm your wife. Don't expect me to fall in line and do what you want me to do just because you're rich. My brain doesn't work that way. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, fighting back his anger. Now you're just trying to make me angry. And am I succeeding? Because I'll tell you now, this is a fight we'll be having often until you learn to respect the fact that I'm not a muppet to be controlled by you. I will not just do what you want because you expect it. I have a brain. And I expect to use it on a regular basis. Whether you like it or not. He shook his head, pushing away from the table. I thought I'd been very pleasant this weekend. Why are you picking a fight? This isn't a major deal. Sure. You've been pleasant. You spent almost no time with me, but you've been pleasant when you've bothered to be around. Marriage is about more than spending time together in bed and making babies. It's more than raising children together. It's getting along. We have to spend time together to get along. You worked all day yesterday, and now you're running off on a business trip tomorrow? And you weren't even going to tell me? That's ridiculous. He stepped closer to her, his hands going to her shoulders. He wanted to shake her. It's what his father would have done. Instead, he closed his eyes and took deep calming breaths. He wasn't his father. He didn't hurt women. Spend the week wherever you want to spend it. We did promise to live together for a year, and the house we're living in is mine. She closed her eyes, nervous about the anger she saw in his. I'll stay here. I don't want you to automatically assume I'll do what you want, though. I have a brain. She knew she was repeating herself, but she was furious. She had a right to think for herself. Do you have what you need to go get your things? I just need to go to my room and get my purse. I'll be down in a minute. She was so happy to get away from him, she could not express it. She went upstairs to her room and straight into the bathroom. She splashed cold water on her face, trying to calm her anger. Never in her life had she met someone who could make her this angry, except maybe her sister Brooke. The man was ridiculous. She grabbed her purse and went back downstairs, a little bit calmer. He'd obviously taken the time to calm down as well, and turned to her with a slight smile. Let's go. I'm ready. She followed him out to the garage and got into the passenger seat of the car. She was still angry enough she didn't want to talk to him, but she didn't want to be childish. She struck up a conversation about the things she needed to get from her home. If you're going to have your secretary set up movers tomorrow, today we can just get a couple suitcases worth of clothes. I need clothes for work this week, and I need my bathing suit. He nodded as he guided the car out of the driveway. I'll join you for a swim later. He really didn't have the time, but he realized she was right. He shouldn't have married her and immediately ran off to work, ignoring her. She needed to be a priority to him. Only if you want to. I wouldn't want to get in the way of your work. The words sounded a lot more sarcastic than she'd meant them to. Never having experienced this kind of anger, she wasn't sure how to come down from it. She was used to having an even temper, and always smiling. She hadn't expected the first strong emotion she felt toward her husband to be anger. He drove in the direction of Plymouth, and she gave him directions once they got off the highway on the way there. Their conversation was stilted the entire drive. Once they reached her apartment, they went upstairs together. He looked around the small apartment she lived in. It was barely bigger than a shoebox. How do you live with so little space? Belatedly, he remembered he'd promised not to judge her on her apartment. It's just me. I don't need much. This is a lot more space than I had in the dorm, and I had to share a room. She walked into her bedroom and sat down on the edge of the bed as she opened the drawers in her dresser that was right beside the bed. Daniel followed her in, watching her as she dug through her drawers. He walked over and picked up a bra from her drawer. It was thick and serviceable, but not sexy at all. I hope this one is going in the trash. I'll pick out all new underwear for you. He liked things that were more in line with what she'd worn the night before. Brenda snatched her bra from his hand. Until you pay attention to me, you get no say in my undergarments. She was blushing furiously as she threw the bra on the bed. Daniel walked over and picked it up again. While she was throwing other things on the bed, he checked the size. He didn't care what she thought, he'd be buying a whole new wardrobe for her. He wandered around the apartment, going into her closet and looking at her clothes. By the time he left her closet, he knew all her sizes. He'd pick out a few things on his own, but most things he would leave to a personal shopper. He wouldn't say it to her, but she needed to be dressed differently as his wife. Looking at the quality of her things, he knew that most would need to be donated. She wouldn't need any of it anyway. Brenda ignored him as she packed her things. Having him prowling around her apartment that way was a little disconcerting, but it didn't bother her too terribly much. They were married, after all. As long as he kept his hands out of her underwear drawer, she was fine with it. He'd embarrassed her with the bra, but she did her best not to react. 20 minutes later, she'd packed enough that she was ready to go. Will you have your secretary call me tomorrow so I know when to meet them here? Yes, I'll have her call you. He pulled his phone from his pocket. "What's your number?" She gave it to him, and he quickly punched it into his phone. "Call me, so I'll have yours." She could just see the looks on people's faces if they saw her exchanging phone numbers with her new husband. "Are you ready?" He could see that she'd already packed 2 suitcases, but he wasn't sure if she still had more to do. "For now. I can get the rest of the stuff this week. Almost everything that's still here I'll be donating. I need to pack up my books, and the rest of my clothes." He wanted to tell her to leave her clothes, but he refrained. "If you have a Kindle, why do you still have other books? There are some books that aren't on Kindle. Older books that haven't been turned into ebooks yet. I can't stop rereading those, just because I have a Kindle." He frowned at her. "You reread books? You don't? If you absolutely love a book, you don't read it over and over? To me, old books are like old friends." She pictured herself standing at a coffin filled with old books, weeping copiously as she said goodbye. He nodded at her, his facial expression showing that he thought she was insane. "Okay." She wrinkled her nose at him and gave him a suitcase to carry. "You get the big one. I could make a sexual joke here, but I'm going to let it go." He preceded her out of the apartment and started down the stairs while she locked the door. That's probably for the best. She found by spending time with him, she was no longer angry. She wanted to stay angry, but she just couldn't do it. Chapter 6. They stopped for lunch on the way home, and as soon as they got back to the house, Daniel went to his office to work. Brenda put her things away and changed into her bathing suit. It was a modest one-piece, but she was still embarrassed wearing just that in the house. She shrugged a robe on over the top and went out to the pool. It was only in the mid-70s, but when she dipped her toe into the water, it was almost as warm as bathwater. Just perfect for swimming. She dropped her robe on the lounger and dove into the water. She immediately began swimming laps, pushing as hard as she could until she was tired. When she was finished, she collapsed on one of the chairs next to the pool. She'd go back upstairs as soon as she was dry enough. While she sat there, she thought about the fight she'd had with Daniel that morning. As many times as she'd heard that absence makes the heart grow fonder, she knew it would be hard for them to be separated this early in their marriage. She wished she had the ability to go with him, but there was no way. She couldn't just leave her job unexpectedly, giving no notice. She didn't have it in her to behave that way. She sat there with her eyes closed, thinking about how she could have reacted differently. He was her husband, and as sad as it was, he was used to having his own way. With the kind of money he obviously had, not many people would stand up to him. She didn't care though. Why would she? No matter how much money he made, they were partners in their marriage. Until he could respect that, she knew they couldn't go any further than they already had. Was this what Dr. Lachelle had meant when she'd said that the beginning of their marriage would be rocky? When she dried sufficiently, she got up and went inside. When she reached her room, she stripped off her bathing suit and walked into the bathroom. A long shower was just what she needed. She didn't know why, but she'd always done her best thinking in the shower. When she was finished, she grabbed her Kindle and went down to the kitchen. She searched to see what ingredients were available and started dinner for them. Last night, Daniel had emerged around 6:30 to eat. She assumed he'd be there around the same time tonight. She found everything she needed to make a simple chicken dish. While it was cooking, she sat at the table in the kitchen reading her book. At 6:30, she put everything on the table. When he didn't immediately come down, she wondered where she would find him. The house was huge, and she didn't even know where his office was. For a moment, she contemplated walking through the house and knocking on every door. Then she remembered she had his phone number. She picked up her cell phone, and feeling ridiculous, found his number and started to call him. Just as she was about to punch in his number, she decided to text him instead. That would be so much easier than calling. She hated talking on the phone. After doing it 40 hours a week for several months, she knew she would never voluntarily call anyone again. She quickly texted, thumbs flying. "Dinner's ready. Meet me in the kitchen." Maybe it was stupid to text him from another room in the same house, but she didn't care. At least she didn't have to go traipsing through the house trying to find him. Her phone buzzed in her hand. "On my way." She'd already fixed both of their plates when he came in. "I hope you're hungry." He nodded, walking toward the table. "I'm famished." "Are we always going to be eating in the kitchen?" He'd spent more time in the kitchen since meeting her than he usually did in a month. She nodded. "If we're here alone, I don't know why we wouldn't." He shrugged, because it really didn't matter that much to him. "Did you have a good day?" He had tried his best to work, but found himself thinking of her at odd moments. She nodded. "As good of a day as I could have had on my own. I swam for a while, and I read for a while." "Did you get a lot of work done?" Truly, she was more introvert than extrovert, and she lived for her time alone, but to be alone so much on the weekend she married was just odd. He nodded. "I really did. I should be able to take next weekend off after I get back from Dallas." That had been his goal all weekend. To do enough work so they could spend an uninterrupted weekend together. He didn't care what they did, as long as they could get to know one another better. She looked at him with surprise. "Really? What are you going to do with yourself?" He grinned. "I thought maybe I'd spend some time with my new wife." "Well, that will be unusual." "Are you sure you can handle that?" He made a face at her. "It's not that I don't want to spend time together. I just don't have a lot of time to spare. My business has taken up 70 hours a week for the past 10 years. I don't know any other way to live." "So these children you want, are you going to have time for them?" She could picture her future. 6 children wandering behind her a foot apart, marching in order like little baby ducks following their mother. Each of them would get 5 minutes per day with their father. Their mother would get 1 minute when they were done. "Are you sure you can spare 31 minutes per day for us?" 31 minutes? That's a pretty exact number. Why would I need 31 minutes? "Well, 5 for each of the 6 kids and 1 for me." Brenda hadn't meant to blurt the number out, but once she had, she knew there was no going back. He blinked at her for a moment, and then threw his head back and laughed. 6 kids? How are we going to have 6 kids if I only spend a minute per day with you? I promise you, I'm not that fast. He took her hand in his, caressing her palm with his thumb. "It'll be slow and tender." She blushed, trying to pull her hand away, but he kept it. "After 6 kids, you don't think you'd want to slow down a bit?" "I don't know. If they're well behaved, why? I like kids." At least he thought he did. He hadn't been around them much, but he'd always thought he'd want a bunch. She shook her head. "You really do plan on keeping me barefoot and pregnant, don't you?" The idea of holding his child in her arms was oddly appealing. She'd known she wanted children, but it had always been the fact that it was her child that appealed. "And you're already keeping yourself in the kitchen. You're a stereotype waiting to happen." She wrinkled her nose at him. "Don't be mean. I need my hands. How am I supposed to eat one-handed?" She tugged her hand away from him, and this time he released it. "First, I really don't spend enough time with you, and then I hold your hand too much. What exactly do you want from me?" He had a grin on his face as he asked. "I guess I just have unreasonable expectations." She took a bite of her dinner. "Expecting me to have 47 children might be a bit unreasonable of you, though." 47? I said 3 or 4. You're the one who said 6. Daniel shook his head, acting very put upon. Brenda looked at him, chuckling softly. There were times when the man made her want to break a brick over his head, and then there were times like this, when he kept her laughing. She'd only known him for a day and a half. She could only imagine how weird things were going to get in another couple of weeks. She realized then she was actually going to miss him while he was in Dallas. Am I going to hear from you at all while you're gone? Not only would she miss him, she worried they'd lose the progress they'd made that weekend. Would it be like seeing a stranger again on Friday? He put his fork down and gave her his full attention. I will be sure to call you every single night, and we can text and email as well. I'll be working a lot, but I should be in my hotel room by 9:30 Central Time, so 10:30 our time. I'll make sure I call or Skype then. Does that work? Brenda nodded. That was late for her on a work night, but she could lose a little sleep to talk to her new husband. It wouldn't hurt her a bit. That sounds good. I'll expect your calls. She wouldn't admit that she'd sit around waiting for them, but there was no doubt in her mind. She would. He pulled out his phone. What's your email address? She gave it to him, and he plugged it into his phone. I'll leave for the airport around 9 tomorrow, so we'll see each other at breakfast. Normally he would skip breakfast or eat later, but it was important to him to see her before he left. Sounds good. It really is going to be weird to be in this huge house by myself. She looked around the kitchen, trying to imagine how anyone could live alone in a house that size. I'm sorry I have to leave so soon after we've met. I promise I really will keep in touch. Daniel frowned down at his plate. If there's any way I can come back early, I will. He was already cramming 3 weeks' worth of work into 1 week, though, so he was pretty sure he couldn't. His friend, Seth, was going with him to help him. He was a computer consultant, and he often used him when he wanted to get something done quickly. Thank you. I appreciate you acknowledging my feelings about it. I know I don't have a right to ask you to stay home, so I'm not. I'm going to miss you, though, she said simply. He caught her hand again and brought it to his lips. I'll miss you as well. He was surprised to find that he meant it. He'd only known her for a day and a half. How could he miss her already? Why was she becoming so important to him already? Brenda felt a flutter in her midsection at his words. Whether they were true or not, they were nice to hear. She wanted to thank him for saying it, but she felt too awkward, so instead she jumped up and loaded the dishwasher. Daniel watched her, wondering what was going on in her mind. His new wife was a bit odd, but he liked her, a lot. He'd wondered about Dr. Lachille's matchmaking skills a few hours before, but now, he was certain the woman had done well. If only they could get used to each other. He was sure that was the key. Once Brenda understood that he did things the way he did because they worked well, surely she'd simply fall in line. Brenda finished loading the dishwasher except the plate he was still eating from before she dared glance at him. When she caught him watching her, she blushed. Are you finished? She asked, indicating his plate. He nodded, standing and carrying the plate to her. She put it into the dishwasher and started the cycle. When she turned back to him, he was looking at her, his face filled with confusion. What? She finally asked. Of all the women I've known since I've become wealthy, you're the only one who would do domestic chores instead of waiting for Mrs. Brinkley. She turned to him, leaning back against a counter as she raised an eyebrow. Have you brought that many women back here? He shook his head, moving toward her and boxing her in. I've never brought any women here. But you can tell a lot about a woman without ever seeing her in your home. He used his index finger to tilt her face up to his. You're special. He leaned down and brushed his lips across hers, his hands going to her waist and pulling her closer. And short. You're very short. How tall are you? She sighed, pulling away from him. Way to ruin a moment, Daniel. I'm 4 feet 11 inches. I'm the perfect height to make you feel tall and manly, right? He laughed. Is that how I feel when I'm with you? I'm so glad you told me. She grinned. I even make short men feel tall and manly. It's my superpower. My wife has a superpower? I'm in nerd heaven. Oh really? She wrapped her arms around his neck. I'm here to serve. He pressed his lips against hers, kissing her softly. I'm sure you're not going to want to roll around in the sheets with me tonight, so why don't we go get our bathing suits on, and get in the hot tub? We'll ask each other a few more questions. She nodded, following him through the house and up the stairs, stopping outside her door. I'll meet you in the hallway when I'm ready. Sounds good. They went into their respective rooms and shut the doors. She hurried and changed into the same bathing suit she'd worn earlier. It was still a bit damp, and she hated how cold it felt against her skin. She grabbed a towel as well, and as soon as she was done, she opened the door to the hallway and stepped out. He was leaning against the wall, wearing a pair of dark swim trunks. His eyes traveled over her from head to toe. His face made it very clear that he liked what he saw. I like that suit. It looks good on you. Brenda was embarrassed, but he had every right in the world to see her unclothed. They were married after all. Thank you. What else could she say? He caught her hand, and they went down the stairs together. We could go for a swim as well if you'd like, but I heard you out here splashing around earlier. Do you want to swim again? He usually swam in the mornings, but the idea of a moonlit swim with her was oddly appealing. She shook her head. Not really. A nice long soak in the hot tub sounds good to me. When they reached the pool area, he threw his towel into a chair, and she did the same. He pushed the button to turn the hot tub on, and preceded her into the small pool. She followed him, sitting across from him in the round area. Are you afraid of me or something? Get over here. His voice was playful as he indicated the spot next to him. You said we were going to talk. So I sat somewhere where you wouldn't be tempted to try to do anything else. Brenda got up and moved across the hot tub, sitting beside him. He immediately wrapped his arm around her shoulders, anchoring her to his side. Okay, let's play the getting to know you game. You ask a question, I'll answer, and then I get to ask you a question. Same rules as last night. No questions about my life before I was 18. She nodded. She'd been thinking of questions she could ask him all day. She'd even Googled some, knowing he didn't mind answering. What's one thing in your past you'd like to change? He frowned, thinking how to answer that. Good question. I don't know. He pondered for a moment. I wish I'd started taking programming classes earlier. Then I wouldn't have had such a hard learning curve when I started my business. She'd expected his answer to be something about his business, so the answer didn't surprise her a bit. Your turn. Let me think. Is there anything I could do that would make it acceptable for you to cheat on me? The answer was extremely important to him, but he tried to act nonchalant about it. His mother had cheated on his father repeatedly, and she'd excused it based on his abuse. She shook her head. There's never any reason that it would be acceptable for anyone to cheat on their significant other. I believe very strongly in the sanctity of marriage. I know we signed a contract to stay together for at least a year, but I don't see myself ever leaving. I don't believe in divorce. He nodded. It was the answer he wanted, and he was glad she agreed with his feelings. I agree. Especially when children are involved, I don't believe in divorce. My turn. Let's see. It's 6 months down the road. I'm 4 months pregnant. Through testing, they determine that our child will be born with a birth defect. Who gets to make the ultimate decision about whether or not we keep the child? Would you expect me to automatically have an abortion? He blinked a few times. I've never even thought about that. I don't like the idea of ending the life of the child for any reason. I know it would probably be politically correct for me to say it's your body, but it would be our child. I think even if the child is able to be born and live for 30 minutes, I would want it to live for 30 minutes. Brenda absolutely loved his answer. She turned to him and wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling his head down for a kiss. It was the first kiss she'd initiated with him. After a moment, she pulled away. Thank you. I agree. I honestly don't know if the answer would change if it meant it might affect your life. I hope it wouldn't. I think things should be allowed to take their natural course. She nodded. I agree. I don't think it's my choice whether I get to live or the baby gets to live. It's God's choice. Are you religious? I know we were married in your church, but I don't know how strong your beliefs are. She shrugged. Pretty strong. I was raised Christian, and I'm definitely pro-life. What about you? I honestly haven't thought about it a whole lot. My parents weren't religious at all. I've only really ever been in a church for weddings and funerals. He'd never been invited to go to church with anyone. When he was younger, no one he knew was religious. Once he hit college, he was always so busy, no one ever asked anything from him. It was the first time he'd mentioned his parents to her. She wanted to ask more, but he'd made it clear that topic was off limits to her. I usually go every Sunday. It didn't seem right to go to church the day after I married, so I didn't today. I'd love it if you wanted to go with me, but I understand either way. I'll think about it. It hadn't occurred to him he'd marry someone who was religious. He liked the idea of his children being raised with the strong moral values that came with Christianity, so he might give it a try. My turn. Let me think. Brenda was startled for a moment, realizing just then that their little game had turned into a real discussion. He was taking it back to the game though, and she was fine with that. She was simply thankful for the insight into his real thoughts he'd given her. Make it an easy one. Easy? You said yesterday that you've never been with a man. Is that because of your religion? Brenda nodded. I've always believed that intimacy belongs within marriage. I always knew that I'd wait till my wedding night. And beyond, as the case may be. I noticed. It's okay though. I really do understand why we're waiting. Your turn. Brenda was getting too hot in the water, so she climbed out and sat on the edge of the hot tub with her feet dangling over the edge. Let's think. Okay, if we're going to talk about intimacy, how many women have you been with? I know about the girl in college. What was her name again? Yvette. I've been with 5 women, and I was always at least in a dating relationship with them. I don't have sex with random strangers. All at once, he was both happy and sad that he'd been with so many women. He was glad he had the experience to make it good for her when they finally did consummate, but he was sad that he hadn't waited for her. She was special, and she'd waited for him. He should have done the same for her. That's good to hear. You're sure you're clean? I'm sitting in a pool of water. Of course I'm clean. Oh, he said as if he was just understanding her meaning. You want to know if I have any sexually transmitted diseases? No, I don't. I can get my doctor to write you a letter saying that if you need me to. She shook her head. I trust you. It was a strange thing for her to say. She'd known him for 36 hours, but she did trust him. She surprised even herself with that information. He got out of the tub and sat next to her on the side. His arm went around her waist. So you trust me, do you? Does that mean I can drag you upstairs and have my way with you? She froze at his words. Looking up at him, she wasn't sure she could even speak. You're not serious, are you? He sighed. I would be if I thought I could get away with it. But I know you're not ready. We'll work on that when I get back from my trip. He stroked his hand up and down her arm. We could do some old-fashioned making out tonight, if you're up for it. She felt like she could breathe again. That I can do. She wrapped both arms around his neck and pulled his head down to hers for a kiss. I kind of like kissing you. Kind of? You are not good for my ego, woman. She laughed. Good. No woman wants a man who's full of himself. He just shook his head as he stroked her cheek. Not even sure why I like you. Good taste? He leaned down and kissed her again, taking her breath away. His kiss was needy and full of passion. His hands roamed over her back as he nipped her bottom lip, moving his tongue into her mouth. He pressed her firmly against him, feeling her hard nipples through her bathing suit as they pressed into his chest. Are you cold? He asked softly. She shook her head. The night air was chilly, but his arms were keeping her warm. I'm good. He lowered his head again, his hands exploring her back. He moved one around to cup her breast, moving her suit down and touching her bare skin. When she didn't protest, he slid the strap off her shoulder, bearing her to him. You're beautiful, he whispered as he lowered his lips to the skin he'd bared. She tasted of chlorine, but he had no complaints. Brenda thrust her fingers into his hair, holding his mouth against her. His tongue felt so good against her bare skin. She moaned softly, feeling the tingling from his lips going straight to her core. He pulled the strap on her other shoulder down, giving her second breast the same attention as the first. Finally, his lips met hers again, and hers were needy this time. I want you, he whispered against her lips. She hated to tell him no, but she wasn't ready. She tore her lips from his, resting her forehead against his bare shoulder. I'm sorry. No, don't be. I'm not angry. I just need you to know that I want you. Soon, we'll make love. When it's right for both of us. As much as he wanted to throw her over his shoulder and carry her up the stairs to his bed, he knew she wasn't ready. Thank you. He shook his head. There's no need to thank me. It's what we agreed to. He got to his feet, reaching his hand down to help her up. Let's go inside. We both have early mornings tomorrow. Chapter 7. When Brenda got upstairs, she went into her bathroom and showered, blow-dried her hair, and put on her favorite pair of pajamas. They had been a Christmas gift the previous year and had penguins all over them, covering her from her calves to her collarbone. There was nothing sexy about them, but she didn't care. It wasn't like Daniel was going to see her in them. He'd gone to his own room to shower. When she opened the door to her bedroom, the first thing she saw was her new husband lounging on her bed as if he owned the place, probably because he did. He reminded her of pictures she'd seen of Roman emperors lying on their sides while some concubine fed them grapes. Before she could stop herself, the words popped out of her mouth. I'm not going to run around scantily clad, feeding you grapes. You can forget it. Scantily clad, I would like. Grapes are okay, but I prefer Rolos. Rolos? What emperor in his right mind would want a concubine to feed him Rolos? She climbed onto the bed beside him, assuming his position with her head propped on her fist, facing him. One who swims laps for an hour every morning. I need to keep my energy up. Her hand went to his flat stomach, stroking him. You definitely have a swimmer's body, Rolos or no Rolos. He closed his eyes, feeling his body jumping at her touch. You're playing with fire, my dear. He'd never called anyone dear before, because he wasn't given to pet names. It just rolled off his tongue with her though. After less than 2 days' acquaintance, he felt as if he'd known her for a long time. She snatched her hand back, immediately contrite. Sorry. Don't be. Just be prepared for consequences if you touch me that way. His voice lowered to a whisper. I like it. I'll remember that for the future when I want you to like how I'm touching you. She leaned forward and touched her lips softly to his, amazed at how easily she'd gotten used to touching this man. I'm not going to stay long, but I wanted to come and say goodnight. What man in his right mind doesn't kiss his beautiful bride goodnight before bed? Not my husband, thankfully. She'd never thought of herself as beautiful, but the more often he said it, the more she believed it. You're starting to spoil me. I plan on doing it until we're old. His words surprised him. He was really starting to believe their marriage would be a good one, and he wasn't just thinking with his joystick when he said it. He pressed her lips with one last kiss. I'll see you at breakfast. What time will you leave for work? 8. And I'll be getting the last of my things ready in the evenings, I think. Okay. He rolled from her bed and walked to the connecting door. I'll be up at 7 for breakfast with you. Brenda watched as he closed the door behind him, reaching over to turn off the light. It had been a rocky day, but when all was said and done, she believed they would have a strong marriage. They were going to make it through. She was convinced of it. Asterisk. Brenda was dressed for work and downstairs by 7 the following morning. She went into the kitchen to say good morning to Mrs. Brinkley, and told her that she had used her kitchen. I hope I didn't use anything that you were planning on using for a meal, but I wasn't sure what I should use and what I shouldn't. Mrs. Brinkley shook her head. It's your house now. You use whatever you want to use. Thank you. I will. What time will you be getting home from work this evening? I'd like to have dinner prepared. Mrs. Brinkley took the bacon off the stove and put them on a plate lined with paper towels. Probably not until 7:30 or 8. I need to go by my old apartment and get everything settled there. You really don't have to cook for just me though. I can fend for myself when I get back. Mrs. Brinkley smiled. It's my job, and I'm happy to do it. Food will be waiting for you when you arrive home. Are you going to try and force me to have breakfast in the kitchen again? Daniel asked from the doorway. No, we can eat in the dining room if you feel the need. Brenda looked at Mrs. Brinkley. It just doesn't make sense to me for us to eat in the dining room when it's just the two of us. You're determined to shake things up around here, are you? Mrs. Brinkley made a shooing motion with her hand toward the dining room. I'll bring breakfast in within the next 5 minutes. You go talk to your new husband. Brenda walked toward the dining room, stopping to kiss Daniel on the cheek on the way. He grabbed her in an embrace. Don't kiss me like that in front of Mrs. Brinkley. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that would bother you. Kiss me like this in front of other people. He pulled her to him, his mouth coming down on hers passionately. When he lifted his head a minute later, she looked slightly dazed. Why kiss in public if you're not going to put on a show? Brenda shook her head and moved to sit at the long table. I never would have expected a husband who acts like you. How do I act? Daniel asked. She shrugged. Sometimes I'm convinced you don't like me at all. You abandon me and go off and work, leaving me to my own devices. And sometimes, you're the most attentive husband I've ever seen. I never know what to expect. Wouldn't life be boring if you always knew what to expect? Mrs. Brinkley came through then, saving Brenda from answering. She put the food on the table, leaving them to serve themselves. When will your flight land in Dallas? Around 2, he said. I'll go straight to work there. I won't even check into my hotel until around 9 Central Time tonight. And you'll call around 10:30 our time? She asked. She needed to know when she'd hear his voice again. She was afraid it made her sound clingy, and she didn't want that, but she wanted him to know she cared. Yes. Do you have Skype set up on your phone? Or on a laptop? I'd rather be able to see you. He lowered his voice. Wear something sexy for me. She blushed and sputtered. You've already seen the sexiest thing I own. That thing you wore for our wedding night? That was nice. Nothing would be nicer. He waggled his brows at her, leaving her with no doubt of his meaning. I'm not going to Skype with you with no clothes on. There's no way. She shook her head. I would be so embarrassed. I'm your husband. I'll see you that way soon enough anyway. At least, I'd better. She finished her breakfast and pushed away from the table. I need to go to work. He stood, pulling her to him and kissing her softly. Don't forget to give your notice today. She shook her head. I won't. Have your secretary call me when she has the mover set up. I will. He stroked her cheek with the back of his fingers. I'm going to miss you while I'm gone. I'll miss you too. She stood on tiptoe to kiss him once more, before heading out the door. As soon as she got to work that morning, Brenda talked to her supervisor, explaining the situation. What do you need from me? She asked. Is an email sufficient for written notice? Or do I need to print something off? Jason, her supervisor, frowned at her. Are you sure you can make ends meet without working? Not many women quit their job as soon as they marry. Trust me. We can make ends meet. Daniel would prefer that I stopped working immediately, so I need to give my 2 weeks' notice today. Would it be better for you if you didn't have to finish out the week? He asked. We have a new training class on the floor today, and we're in the middle of our end-of-year lull anyway. It wouldn't hurt anything if you packed up your desk and left right away. Brenda frowned at that. She wished she'd had time to leave with Daniel. That would help me out a lot if I wouldn't be leaving you in the lurch. I've never not served a full notice before. Oh, I know that without you telling me. You're not the type to leave a job without notice. He shrugged. Go ahead and pack up your desk. Your employment record won't be hurt at all by this. Oh, thank you. It will be so much easier for me. Jason got to his feet, holding out his hand to shake hers. I hope you're happy. If not, you'll be welcome to come back here. She smiled. I will be. She hurried from the conference room where they'd had their talk to her desk, pulling things out of her drawers. Janelle stood up and looked over the edge of the cube at her. Are you quitting? Brenda nodded. I am. Jason told me not to bother to serve my notice, because there's a new class on the floor. We're slow anyway. She pulled things out of her drawer and nodded when Jason brought her a box. Thank you. I can't believe you're leaving me. I like you. Janelle frowned at Brenda. Brenda laughed. You've got my number. It's not like we can't talk. You should come over and go for a swim with me. Oh, your new apartments have a pool? Brenda shook her head, trying not to laugh. Daniel has a pool in his yard. Janelle would freak out if she realized who Brenda had married. Daniel? I finally get to know his name? Wow. I thought you'd never tell me. I really wasn't trying to be mysterious. It just worked out better if I didn't talk to people about it. She didn't know why she didn't want her friend to know they'd met through a matchmaker. There was nothing wrong with what she did, but she was a bit embarrassed. About what? What's your new last name anyway? Brenda wasn't sure if Janelle would know her last name or not. Most people in the area had heard of Daniel Axford. Just because she had didn't mean anything. Axford. Wait. You married Daniel Axford? The billionaire? The guy who started his own internet dating service in college? That would be Daniel. Now you can understand why I wasn't telling anyone anything before we married. Definitely. Oh well. Where do you live? Janelle's face revealed her shock. He has a house in Weston. You really should come over sometime after work and we'll swim. Sounds good to me. He won't mind? Brenda sighed. He's out of town this week. He had to go to Dallas for business. She already missed him. And she hated that she hadn't been able to go with him when it would have worked out. You let your billionaire husband leave town without you when you haven't even been married a week? Are you nuts? He wanted me to go, but Jason wouldn't let me have any time off work. Notice was too little. Brenda shrugged. Maybe I'll join them. She put the last of her things into a box, hefting it onto one hip. See you soon. She left the call center and headed toward the elevators. It felt weird to know she was unemployed, but it felt good. When she got to her car, she put the box in the back seat. She decided then that she'd head to Plymouth and finish moving the rest of her things that day. When she got to her apartment, she looked down at her phone. It had been silenced so it wouldn't ring in the call center. There were 4 text messages waiting. The first was from her mother. Are you still alive? I haven't heard from you. I need to know you're not dead. Brenda laughed, answering immediately. I'm still kicking. The next text was from Michaela. Is he perfect? Are you going to keep him? She texted back. Of course I'm keeping him. I signed a contract that I keep him for a year. He's pretty terrific. The last 2 texts were both from Daniel. At the airport, already missing you. Think of me while I'm flying. Do you miss me yet? Brenda grinned. Oh, terribly. Do you miss me? She knew he was probably already on his plane, so she didn't expect an answer back very quickly. She went up to the apartment and started carrying boxes of books down to her car. She knew Daniel would tell her to leave them for the movers, but she had time. It wouldn't kill her to do it herself. She just finished carrying the second load of books to her car when her phone rang. She didn't recognize the number, but she answered anyway. Hello? Mrs. Axford? It was a female voice, one she didn't recognize. Brenda felt strange hearing that name applied to her. Yes, this is Brenda. This is Shelby, Mr. Axford's secretary. I've arranged for the movers to be at your apartment today at 3:30. I know Daniel said you couldn't get to your apartment until about 6 or so, but I can come get your keys from you and wait for them. Actually, there's no need. I gave my notice this morning, and my supervisor let me go immediately. I'm at the apartment now. I'm going to take a load of stuff to Daniel's house, and then I'll come back here and meet them. She wanted to walk down the waterfront one more time before she moved out of Plymouth anyway. She was going to miss living there. All right. That sounds good. You let me know if there's anything I can do for you while Mr. Axford's out of town. I'm at your disposal. Thank you, Shelby. I'll let you know. Brenda knew she wouldn't ask for anything though. She had no responsibilities until she found some volunteer work, so she wouldn't be adding extra work to the secretary. She finished loading her car by placing all of her hanging clothes on top of the boxes of books and drove back to Weston, pleased to be getting all of her personal items out of the apartment before the movers arrived. When she carried her first box into the house, Mrs. Brinkley gaped at her with shock. Put that box down. I'm calling Mr. Brinkley to finish unloading your car. What are you thinking, girl? Mr. Axford will have our heads if we let you hurt yourself. I can do it. Brenda protested. She'd always done the bulk of her moving on her own. There was no reason for her to call someone to help her. Can and should are 2 very different things. Mr. Axford assigned a room to be your own personal room here on the 1st floor. There are shelves along one wall, and some comfortable places to sit. If you enjoy crafts, it will be a good place for you. I've never had a lot of time for crafts, but maybe I'll take some classes. Brenda set her box down on the counter. You just leave that right there. Louis will take care of it. So what should I do? Go for a swim. It's a nice day. Or read a book. Or look up volunteer opportunities. Brenda sighed. I'll get my laptop and look up volunteer opportunities. She walked back out to her car and carried in her laptop case. She went up to her room and changed into shorts and a t-shirt. She wasn't going to run around in her uncomfortable work clothes for any longer than she had to. She carried her laptop to the chair in one corner of the room and plugged her laptop in. She had no idea what the Wi-Fi password was, so she used her phone as a hotspot. She'd ask Mrs. Brinkley later. She heard the ding that meant she had a new text message. I can't believe they let you go immediately. I'd have waited a few hours and brought you with me. She frowned at her phone. How did you know? Shelby told me. She tells me everything. You probably want to remember that for the future. I will. She seems very efficient. She is. Where are you? In my bedroom at your house. Our house. Our house. I'm looking up volunteer opportunities. I should have said I wanted to work all week so I don't go insane while you're gone. You could always fly to Dallas to meet me. Brenda smiled at the offer. I'd just be sitting in a hotel room all day. How is that better than here? I can do whatever I want here. If you were here, we'd have all night to amuse ourselves. Watching TV together? I had something else in mind. She chuckled. He was being silly and flirty, and she loved it. Oh really? Where are you? In the back of a limo, heading to the hotel in Dallas. Sorry, I can't get naked here and send you a pic. I don't recall asking for a naked pic. Why would you think I'd want that? That's all women ever want from me. I'm just a sex object in their minds. It's my lot in life. Brenda shook her head. That's terrible. I feel bad for you. I promise, I love you for your mind, not for your body. Please, love me for my body. I beg of you. Only if you promise to love me for my mind. Oh, sure. Your mind and your honkers. Brenda gasped, before laughing hysterically. Did you really just refer to the part of my anatomy that will feed our children as honkers? Would you prefer dairy section? No. No, I wouldn't. Too bad. At the hotel. Talk later. Think dirty thoughts about me. Brenda stared at her phone in disbelief. What was wrong with him? I'll be around. Chapter 8. Brenda kept busy all day. She drove back to Plymouth right after lunch and walked the waterfront. She stopped in at the small shop she'd worked in most of the summer and talked to the manager, catching her up on her life. They'd worked well together. She stopped and got a box of saltwater taffy, and then walked along the beach for a few minutes. She would miss living this close to the ocean. Not that Weston was far, but it just wasn't the same. Back at her apartment, she waited in the living room for the movers. She'd gotten everything she needed out in the earlier trip, and now she just needed to have everything else sent to a charity of her choice. She'd researched earlier and decided on Fresh Start Furniture Bank, a nonprofit organization that provided furniture for people in need. While she was waiting, she heard the ding of a text. She glanced at the screen and laughed. It was Daniel again. The man was certainly different in text messages than he was in person. What are you wearing? A smile. We need to Skype. Right now. Her phone started to buzz, indicating a Skype call. She bit her lip, stifling the laughter as she swiped her finger to answer it. Hi you. She said, a huge smile on her face. You said you were wearing just a smile, he said, frowning at her. Why are you wearing clothes? I didn't say I was wearing just a smile. I said I was wearing a smile. You didn't ask if I was wearing anything else. She shook her head at him. I'm waiting for the movers. Do you really want me to be sitting here in just a smile? I'm on my way to a meeting. I thought maybe I'd get a little thrill on the way. You know you have real issues, don't you, Daniel? Brenda couldn't believe just how different he was now that he was away from her. She might need to insist he take business trips at least once a month. Hey, you married me for my body. You said you did. He glared at her, a petulant frown on his face. Did you lie to me? She laughed. You're crazy. I like this side of you. Fly here and meet me, he insisted. I miss you. You saw me 10 hours ago. You can't miss me that much. If you'd been home, you'd have locked yourself in your office and ignored me that long. He put his hand over his heart as if she'd stabbed him. A mortal blow. The right answer would have been, I miss you too, sweetheart. She could see tall buildings behind him. He was in the back of a car going somewhere again. Where are you staying? She asked. Hyatt Regency in Dallas. It's not too far from the speed dating site. Why? You want to come share my suite with me? She laughed. You're nuts, Mr. Axford. I think you just like flirting when there's no worry of follow-through. In a minute, you'll be where you need to be, and then you'll ignore me again. I never ignore you. I work hard so I can get back to you sooner. See the difference? No. What's your room number? In case I need to reach you, she asked. Shelby's got it, but it's 2766. It's the presidential suite. Lots of room for two. She laughed, seeing from behind him that the car was stopping. I'll daydream about you being there all alone, missing me. He flashed her a grin, his white teeth flashing. Imagine me naked. That's how I always imagine you. He was gone before she had a chance to respond. Brenda wasn't sure if she was relieved or annoyed. She was happy for their time apart, something she hadn't expected. She was getting to know him in a different way, and she was enjoying this side of him a great deal. She jumped when someone pounded on the door of her apartment. Rushing to the door, she swung it wide. Are you my movers? The big man in jeans and tight t-shirt in front of her nodded. She could see a man standing behind him, dressed similarly. Yes, we are. I'm Bob. This is my friend, Robbie. Were we taking this stuff? Brenda pulled out her phone, where she'd made a note of the address. It's a place called Fresh Start Furniture Bank. She read off the address to him. Everything that's left needs to go there. I'll take care of it. You going to stay around and watch? Brenda shook her head. No need. I'm donating everything that's left. She planned to come back the next day to do the cleaning, so she would get her deposit back. Has payment been arranged? She and Daniel hadn't talked about that, but she was relatively certain he'd taken care of it. The man nodded. Absolutely. Some lady named Shelby gave me a credit card number. Sounds good. I'll be off then. Would you make sure that you lock the door when you leave? Maybe she shouldn't trust him to lock it, but with nothing left in the apartment, there was no real danger. Yes, of course. Brenda rushed down the stairs to her car, driving back toward Weston. Only one more trip to the apartment, and she would be done there. It was hard to believe that she would no longer live alone. That little apartment was the first place that she had ever had that was truly hers. She was sad to leave it in some ways. She could hear her text messages going off again, but decided to wait until she got home before she looked at anything. It was strange to think of this house as home. She pulled into the garage and checked her text messages. Daniel again. The man was supposed to be working. This meeting is boring. Want to send me pictures of the dairy section? Brenda laughed out loud. I told you I didn't like dairy section. You didn't like honkers either. What do you want me to call them? Your headlights? Brenda couldn't believe she was having this conversation with her husband. Let's just call them Laverne and Shirley. Okay. Which one is the Laverne and which one is Shirley? Right one is Laverne. Shirley's my favorite. Brenda shook her head. Why do you have a favorite? You're going to make Laverne feel bad. Fine. Just send me a picture of Laverne then. What do I get in return? I'll send you a picture of my joystick. Pay attention to your meeting. Brenda got out of the car, ignoring the text message signals coming in. She walked into the house, stopping in the kitchen to say hello to Mrs. Brinkley. Everything is on its way to a good charity. I'm completely moved in. Mrs. Brinkley smiled. That's great. I'm sure Mr. Axford will be pleased. She eyed the phone in Brenda's hand, which was going off every few seconds. Shouldn't you see who's texting you? Brenda shook her head. I know who it is. Someone you don't want to talk to? It's just Daniel being obnoxious. I'll talk to him later. He's supposed to be paying attention to a meeting. Mrs. Brinkley looked shocked. He's ignoring the meeting for you? I've never heard of such a thing with that boy. Brenda sighed. Trust me, the man is insane. I don't know how he ever gets any work done. Are we talking about the same man? Brenda threw her hands up in the air, indicating her confusion. I don't know what happened to him. But he Skyped me, and it's definitely him. So what are your plans for tomorrow? I need to go and clean out my old apartment. Other than that, I'm done. Oh no. You need to call Shelby and have her hire someone to go do that for you. You don't need to be cleaning that old apartment. Brenda laughed. I'm used to doing for myself. There's no need to hire someone. Mrs. Brinkley shook her head at Brenda. Mr. Axford won't like that. I don't know. I don't think any of us really know that man. He's different. Brenda left Mrs. Brinkley in the kitchen and went upstairs to change. She wanted to get a swim in before dinner time. She knew she needed to be careful, or she was going to get used to living in this kind of luxury. When she got up to her room, she looked down at her phone. There were 6 more texts. Does this mean you're not sending me a picture of Laverne? Brenda, are you ignoring me? This meeting is boring. Why won't you talk to me? Fine, I'll sit here and imagine you naked. Where are you? You're not responding to me. You're making me feel lonely. If you are not nice, I'm going to start sending you to these meetings. Brenda shook her head as she responded. No picture. Yes, I'm ignoring you. Because you need to pay attention to the meeting. Please don't. I'm at home. I will not go to the meetings in your place. Call me later. Instead of changing her clothes, she picked up her Kindle. Going for a walk sounded better than swimming. She'd walk out to the little swing where she'd sat with Daniel on their wedding night. It would feel like he was close. Asterisk. She was ready for bed, wearing blue pajamas with little yellow rubber duckies on them. She had her Kindle in hand, and she was reading another book. One benefit to being unemployed was that she'd get through her to-be-read pile quickly. Of course, then she'd have to start pestering all of her favorite authors for new books. She had just started reading when she got a text. Are you in bed yet? Yes, but I'm not sleeping yet. I miss you. What are you wearing? Brenda shook her head. Are you going to ask me that every time we talk? If I can't see you, I am. I need to be able to picture you. Why? I'm always curious about what's covering Shirley. Covers. I told you I was in bed. Her Skype indicator came on. She swept her finger to answer. Hi you. Hi there. You're wearing pajamas. Cute duckies. She laughed. Glad you like them. You'd look better without, he told her. He looked tired. How'd your meeting go? Better once I started paying attention to it. You're too distracting. Brenda shook her head. I was minding my own business. I'd just gotten home from letting the movers into my apartment. What did you decide to do with your things? He asked. I moved my personal things, but I had them take the furniture to a charity that provides furniture to people who need it. There was no reason to try to sell it. I'm glad you're done there. I don't like picturing you in that tiny apartment. I just have to go back tomorrow to clean it. No, you don't. Mrs. Brinkley called Shelby, and it's been taken care of. Brenda frowned. I told Mrs. Brinkley I wanted to do it. Mrs. Brinkley guessed correctly that I would want someone else to do it. Every once in a while, I get to do what's best for you. Are you always going to be so difficult? He shrugged. Probably. Does this surprise you? Of course not. So are you going to show me Laverne? I like those names for them. Even better than dairy section. Brenda blushed profusely. It was all fine and dandy to joke about it as long as he couldn't see her face. No. Because if I show you Laverne, you'll insist on showing me your joystick. He grinned. You're getting to know me well. Wish you were here. I really do miss you. She smiled. I miss you too. I've been busy all day today, but I've done everything I need to do now. I would love to see you now that I've accomplished my tasks for the week. You really should join me here. The suite is huge. You could stay here in the room, or you could hang out in the pool area. There's even a big bar. He shrugged. I'd even take you to meetings with me if you wanted to go. Wouldn't you like to see this new speed dating place that I'm opening? I really don't want to get in the way. He laughed. You'd be helping me out. Everyone knows I'm a newlywed, and they're all teasing me because I didn't bring my wife. I think they think that you are a figment of my imagination. She laughed at that. I'm the one that imagines weird things. Not you. You really should come. I really can't. It would be strange. She didn't add that she wasn't a very good flyer. He didn't say anything more about it. I understand. Dream of me? She laughed. After all those crazy texts today? What else would I dream of? Hurry home. She watched his face freeze, and the screen went dark. She wished there was a way that she could surprise him. She tried to imagine how his face would look if she got someone to let her into his suite in the hotel. She pictured the excitement on his face as he welcomed her in. He'd probably demand to see Laverne and Shirley, even as he whipped out his joystick. Crazy man. She glanced at the clock on her phone. It was 10:15. Was it too late to call Shelby? She scrolled through her caller ID, finding Shelby's number. Before she lost her nerve, she tapped her phone and called the secretary. Brenda, is everything okay? Shelby's voice didn't sound sleepy at all. I have a favor to ask. Everything is already taken care of here. Would you help me fly to Dallas to surprise Daniel? I need help booking the flight, getting to the hotel, and getting into his suite. Shelby laughed softly. I can't think of anything I'd rather do. Yes, I will be there in 30 minutes. I'm driving you to the airport myself. The phone went dead.